o'clock, so we can start. So, Sunki, maybe you can start reading.
Yes, I will read, Ranganath.
Yeah.
The, the pure philosopher, the thinker, the born sage, not only relies upon the sattvic principle in him as his ultimate justification, but uses it from the beginning as his instrument of self-mastery. He starts from the sattvic equality. He too observes the transitoriness of the material and external world and its failure to satisfy the desires or to give the true delight. But this causes in him no grief, fear, or disappointment. He observes all with he observes all with an eye of tranquil discernment and makes his choice without repulsion or perplexity. The enjoyments born of the touches of things are causes of sorrow. They have a beginning and an end. Therefore, the sage, the man of awakened understanding, Buddha, does not place his delight in these. The self in him is unattached to the touches of external things. He finds his happiness in himself. He sees, as the Gita puts it, that he is himself his own enemy and his own friend, and therefore he takes care not to dethrone himself by casting his being into the hands of desire and passion. Not Natmanam avasadayet, but delivers himself out of that imprisonment by his own inner power. Uttaret atmanatmanam. For whoever has conquered his lower self finds in his higher self his best friend and ally. He becomes satisfied with knowledge, master of his senses, or master of his senses, or yogin by sattvic equality. For equality is yoga. Samatvam yoga uchate. Regarding alike cloth and stone and gold, tranquil and self-poised in heat and cold, suffering and happiness, honor and disgrace. He is equal in soul to friend and enemy and to neutral and indifferent because he sees that these are transitory relations born of the changing conditions of life. Even by the pretension of learning and purity and virtue and claims to superiority, which man base upon these things, is not led away. He is equal souled to all men, to the sinner and the saint, to the virtuous, learned, and cultured Brahmin, and the fallen outcast. All these are the Gita's descriptions of the sattvic equality, and they sum up well enough what is familiar to the world as the calm philosophic equality of the sage.
Okay, so Swamina has already described to us the tamasic equality. He has also described to us the rajasic equality. Now he is telling us what the sattvic equality is. Equality is the not to be affected by the outward touches of the world. Okay, so the tamasic equality is when you feel that your efforts are not being fulfilled, then you withdraw in a little disgust. So it's a tamasic. It's a little negative. But anyway, it starts the process of getting away from things which are pleasant or unpleasant. Okay? Maybe it is first the unpleasant things that you get away from, but anyway, it's a start. That's it. Tamasic equality. Then the Rajasic equality is exactly the opposite. The Tamasic equality runs away from the difficulties, withdraws. Whereas the Rajasic equality is, it doesn't run away. It faces the difficulty and conquers it and tries for mastery. That's it. And then is not affected by it. Neither sorrow nor pain nor pleasure. So now he is explaining the sattvic equality. So we'll start reading each sentence and we'll see what he says. The sattvic quality belongs to the mind, just as the rajasic equality belongs mainly to the vital and the tamasic equality to the undeveloped, the physical part of man. Okay, so now, naturally, the sattvic equality comes more easily to someone who is developed in the mind. Okay? He is more intelligent, more observant of things, more calm and quiet. So that's a sattvic equality. The pure philosopher, the thinker, the born sage. He is giving you three examples of those who are largely in control of themselves. The born sage not only relies upon the sattvic principle in him as his ultimate justification, but uses it from the beginning as an instrument of self-mastery. He starts from the sattvic equality. Okay? He too observes the transitoriness of the material and external world and its failure to satisfy the desires or to give the true delight. But this causes in him no grief, fear, or disappointment. Now, this sentence is a very interesting one. If you know the word he too, why is he is comparing with whom? He is comparing, if you see the word carefully, you will see, he too observes the transitoriness of the material and external world. And who is watching the transitoriness? The tamasic equality. He gets disgusted with the failures and the, what is it called? The transitoriness. His desires are not fulfilled forever. So, the transitoriness. So, he also, the sattvic man, also notices the transitoriness of the material and external world and its failure to satisfy the desires or to give the true delight. But this causes in him no grief, fear, or disappointment. Whereas in the tamasic man, there is a withdrawal and there is grief, fear, and disappointment. Whereas the sattvic man also, yes.
Ranganath, but here he says he starts with sattvic equality.
Yes.
So how do we reach to that sattvic equality? I mean, how do we reach to that? We have to reach to that to...
By previous development through lives.
Oh, okay. I see.
Your consciousness goes on growing, and then you come to a stage where you are born with a developed mind, and then you look very calmly and quietly at things. That's what. Okay. So the difference between the sattvic and the tamasic is many. First, they start from the same, the transitoriness and the unsatisfactory condition of your wills and wantings and desires. It doesn't get satisfied. Start from both. But the tamasic man has fear and disgust and also disappointment. Whereas the sattvic man has none of these things. He sees calmly, quietly, and he rejects also calmly and quietly. He too, the word too is so telling. Just one word, but he's comparing with the tamasic man. He too observes the transitoriness of the material and external world and its failure to satisfy the desires or to give the true delight. But this causes in him no grief, fear, or disappointment. He observes all with an eye of tranquil discernment. Very calmly, quietly, he sees what is good, what is bad, what is transitory, what has got value, and what has got no value, and makes his choice without repulsion or perplexity. With a calm mind, he looks at what he has to accept and what he has to reject. Okay? There is no repulsion or perplexity. And now he give a quotation, chapter 5, verse 23. The enjoyments born of the touches of things are causes of sorrow. They have a beginning and an end. Therefore, the sage, the man of awakened understanding, Buddha, the one who is wise, does not place his delight in these things. Okay? Yeah, so it goes like this. Yehi sansparshaja bhoga. Sansparshaja bhoga. The enjoyments which come from the outward touches of things. Yeah? Like taste, like pleasant things, okay, outward, who are born uh, from the outward touches, bhoga, they are dukkha yonaya, they are the source of sorrow, evate. And arjan antavanta, arjya antavanta, they have a beginning and an end. Okay? Come there, na teshu ramase Buddha. In that, the Buddha, the Buddhist, sorry, not Buddhist, the wise man, Buddha, the wise man does not enjoy these and he does not entertain them. That's what it is said. The enjoyment born of the touches of things are causes of sorrow and they have a beginning and an end. Therefore, the sage, the man of awakened understanding, Buddha, okay? Buddha does not place his delight in. Now again another quotation. The self in him is unattached to the touches of external things. He finds his happiness in himself. Okay? So, in himself. He takes pleasure in the going inward into his own self, which is absolutely calm and quiet. And
But
this calm and, yes.
Ranga, the self in everyone is unattached or no?
Pardon?
The self in him is unattached. That is in the sattvic awakening. But the self in anyone is unattached, no? Or it is
unattached but also inexperienced. You are not experienced it. Unattached is separated from, in that sense. Okay. So, in everyone it is, you don't know. So it is not it is separated from you. But when you realize it, you find that there is no attachment in the self from physical things. You have to understand the word unattached in the right way. Okay. So, there is the self in him is unattached to the touches of external things. But if the consciousness in you is not conscious of the self, then you are attached to your pleasures and pains.
no, but the self is not attached. No, the self is the conscious. We are conscious or not, the self is not attached.
That is true, but you have to understand and interpret in the right way. The self, when you experience it, you see that it is not attached to anything.
Okay.
But if you don't experience it, you are attached to your pleasures and pains.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
That's right. So, when it is experienced, you have to understand that. Okay? So, does not place. The self in him is unattached to the touches of external things. He finds his happiness in himself. He sees, as the Gita puts it, that he is himself his own enemy and his own friend. And therefore, he takes care not to dethrone himself by casting his being into the hands of desire and passion. Natmanam avasadayet. Na atmanam avasadayet. You should not depress your own being, but delivers himself out of that imprisonment by his own inner power. Uddharet atmanam. You have to support your own inner self. You have to support yourself, not get disappointed and discouraged. That's what it means. Okay. The self is your own friend and your own enemy, depending on what you are identifying yourself with. Okay? And the self means including your body mind life. If you are attached to your body mind life, you get depressed very easily. And if you are experiencing the soul or the self, then you don't get affected by these things. There is a difference between the self and the psychic being. Even when you experience a psychic being, the outer being goes on enjoying and suffering. But the psychic being tries to correct that situation. Okay? The psychic being does not give you necessarily calm and quiet, but it gives you a purificatory effect. But when you go to the self, your being has gone to the self, then you are experiencing the self, which is forever calm and pure. Okay? So there is a slight difference between the psychic being and the self. The self gives you absolute peace and calm and quiet and freedom. But the psychic being starts purifying you. It's a step towards the going to the self. Okay? So Srabda is saying, you should not depress yourself, and you should also not, you should encourage yourself. So depending on what you are identified with. Okay? Na atmanam avasadayet. You should not get depressed very easily by failures and get discouraged. You should not. You should uphold yourself. That depends on with whom you are identifying yourself. I know of some people who thought in the beginning that this yoga is impossible. It is so difficult. When you are identifying yourself with your body, mind, life, that's what you feel. But when the psychic experience is seen, then you feel that, oh my God, this is possible. So then you start supporting yourself and you don't discourage yourself very easily. That is what is being said here. Okay, so I read that sentence again. He becomes satisfied with knowledge, master of his senses, a yogin by sattvic equality. This is the one who is experiences self. For equality is yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Samatvam is spoken of as yoga itself. So you can see how important is the samatvam. Okay, samatha is very, very important concept everywhere. Even the Greek pillar of stoicism is basically the same thing. Control yourself and don't be affected by anything. And then he is giving a very interesting examples, and I'll also give you examples, okay, from Sri Aurobindo and also Ramakrishna. Okay. Regarding alike clod and stone and gold, okay, this is chapter 6, verse 8. Okay. Or there are other chapters also in there. Tranquil and self-poised in heat and cold, suffering and happiness, honor and disgrace. Okay. So you don't get affected by these things, and you can teach yourself with this. Ramakrishna used to do that. He used to teach himself. What he used to take? He used to take on one side mud and on the other side a few coins. And he used to say, what is both are matter? What is the difference between them? And he would throw them into the river. Okay? Into the Hooghly River. He was on the bank, no? Those of you who have gone to that place where Ramakrishna was there, you know that the river is there. Okay, so
Kali Mandir.
Yeah?
Kali Mandir.
Yeah. So that is, he used to teach himself like that. He used to also teach himself in other ways also, which are a little, whether I should say it or not, I don't know. But on one side, he used to take chandan. Okay? Chandan is very often used in India for beautification. You put on your face is very sweet smelling, very nice smell, and fragrant. And you put on one hand, he used to do that. He used to put on one hand, and on the other side, he used to put your own feces. Okay, so he is teaching himself equality, not to be affected by pleasant and beautiful or unpleasant and ugly, not to be affected. Now, in Sri Aurobindo's case, this was very interesting. Sri Aurobindo also was from a very high noble family, and he was not used to all these things. So, when he was in prison, if you read Karakahini, you will see how this quality of equality was developed in him. Shri Krishna brought him into the jail to teach him all these things. And he said very interestingly, there was just one mug. Okay? And that mug used to serve as his morning ablutions. He had to clean himself with that same mug. Just one mug of water, and he had to clean himself after defecating in the cell itself. Okay? And then that same mug would be used for drinking water, and that same mug also would be used for putting the food into it and then taking it. So he is taught absolutely the equality to all things. And even worse, in the room itself, you have to pass your motion. And you have to do it what? How? Not in a toilet, okay? But in a basket, which was tar. Okay? The tar was put on the basket and you have to defecate into that. And the method, the latrine cleaner, he used to come and take it away every day, wash it and put it back. But sometimes he would forget, that man. And so Srivno says that even while I'm eating, that horrible smell is there by the side. There is no way of getting rid of it. I'm in a cell. So these things show to what extent you can develop your equality. Srivno is made to develop his equality this way. Okay. I gave you 2 examples.
Ranganath,
Yes.
is it part of Hatha Yoga, no? Hatha Yoga also does this sort of things?
Hatha Yoga? No, not Hatha Yoga. Hatha
No?
Yoga is only trying to control the body and the vitality. They are not too much concerned with the equality and all that.
Okay.
They are not concerned too much with it. Not Hatha Yoga. In Raj Yoga, to a certain extent, it comes later on. When you practice Pratyahara, then you're taking your senses away from the objects of sense. At that time, there is a little bit in Raj Yoga. Okay? But not otherwise. So, he is equal in soul to friend and enemy, and neutral and indifferent. But he sees that these are transitory relations born of the changing conditions of life. Even by the pretensions of learning and purity and virtue and the claims of superiority, which men base upon these things, he is not led away. So he becomes equal soul to all men, to the sinner, to the saint, to the virtuous, the learned, and the cultured Brahmin, and the fallen outcast. Okay, so this is the again the verses are there in the Gita. We say that is equal soul to all. Now we must not be confused. It does not mean that he sees no difference between the learned man and the sinner. He doesn't see any difference. Of course he sees the difference. But that doesn't affect him. The sight and the discernment is not changed at all. You see what he is and you see what the Brahmin is and what the Shudra is. You see very clearly the differences, but that does not affect you. The being will not be affected. That's what it meant. Okay? So, he is equal in soul to friend and enemy and to neutral and indifferent, because he sees that these are transitory relations born of the changing conditions of life. Even by the pretensions of learning and purity and virtue and the claims to superiority which men base upon these things, he is not led away. What Shandra is saying is, we automatically look upwards to one who is learned, okay, educated. We make a difference. We look up to them, but not the wise man who makes no, because what is the learned? It belongs to the body mind life. It doesn't belong to the soul. The soul is different. In everybody it is different. Essentially pure and divine. Essentially. Yes. See, he is equal soul to all men, to the sinner and the saint, to the virtuous, learned and cultured Brahmin, and the fallen outcast. All these are the Gita's description of the Sattvic equality, and they sum up well enough what is familiar to the world as a calm philosophic equality of the sage, which in Greek times it was known as a stoicism, stoic philosophy. Develop an attitude of not being affected by anything, you will be happy. If you are affected by things, you can never be happy. Okay? So permanent happiness will come, a calm happiness will come when you become equal to all these things. So now, the next paragraph is not a very big one. It's one of you has to read. Pallavi, you can read?
Yes, Rangada.
Okay. Go ahead. Where then is the difference?
Where then is the difference between this and the larger equality taught by the Gita? It lies in the difference between the intellectual and philosophic discernment and the spiritual, the Vedantic knowledge of unity on which the Gita founds its teaching. The philosopher maintains his equality by the power of the buddhi, the discerning mind, but even that by itself is doubtful foundation. For though master of himself on the whole by a constant attention or in an acquired habit of mind, in reality he is not free from his lower nature, and it does actually assert itself in many ways and may at any moment take a violent revenge for its rejection and suppression. For always the play of the lower nature is a triple play. The Rajasic and Tamasic qualities are ever lying in wait for the Sattvic man. Even the mind of the wise man who labors for perfection is carried away by the vehement insistence of the senses. Perfect security can only be had by resorting to something higher than the sattvic equality, something higher than the discerning mind, to the self, not the philosopher's intelligent self, but the divine sage's spiritual self, which is beyond the three gunas. All must be consummated by a divine birth into the higher spiritual nature.
So this paragraph now, Srila is introducing the spiritual equality. The Gita has spoken about the tamasic equality, the rajasic equality, and the sattvic equality. And Srila is asking now, what is the difference between sattvic equality and the spiritual equality? Spiritual equality comes only when you go to the self. But the sattvic equality, even if you are not gone to the self, you are aware that all these things are transitory, and mentally you make an effort to dissociate yourself with them. But the dissociation can never be fully successful. We'll give examples and we'll see what Shendra is saying here. So let us read the paragraph. Where then is the difference between this and the larger equality taught by the Gita? The larger equality taught by the Gita is when you go to the self. You have to start with tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic, but you have to finally reach the self. When your consciousness reaches the self, there is absolute equality. You are not affected by anything. Remember, you are in an immutable condition. No movement at all of the mind and body. What happens then is that the three gunas become equal. When the three gunas are not equal, rajas, sattva and tamas, rajas and sattva, when they are not equal, then there is attraction and repulsion. But when they become absolutely equal, there is absolute stability. That's what happens. You become trigunatita. So, Srila is now explaining the spiritual equality and the sattvic equality, the difference. Okay? It lies in the difference between the intellectual and philosophic discernment and the spiritual. There you go. Okay? The Vedantic knowledge of unity on which the Gita founds its teaching. So, when you are intellectual and philosophical, you are still lingering in the mind. Okay? It's not a full control. It's a mental control. Okay? And that mental control often fails. Srila has given a very interesting example in the evening talks. I'll refer to it. Okay? So, the philosopher maintains his equality by the power of the buddhi, the discerning mind. Okay? You have to make an effort. Okay? The discerning mind. But even that by itself is a doubtful foundation. How much can you control your vital by the mind? Very little. Okay? And there is a beautiful image of in the Gita that the boat on the river on the sea gets blown away by the winds. Okay? It cannot resist the storm. And the mental is the boat sailing on the sea of life, and the vital is like a storm. The vital always wins, ultimately. You may try to control as much as you want, but you can't control it always. Okay? The philosopher maintains the equality by the power of the buddhi, the discerning mind. But even that by itself is a doubtful foundation. For though master of himself on the whole, by constant attention or an acquired habit of mind, note the word acquired habit of mind. You have made it the habit you are rejecting by the mind. Okay? In reality, he is not free from his lower nature. Okay? It does not actually assert itself in many ways and may at any moment take a violent revenge for its rejection and suppression. So I made a note here. Srivendra gives an example in the evening talks. Okay? And he says that an ascetic who was a sattvic equality, a practitioner of sattvic equality, even the ascetic, one day near a river, he saw a woman bathing, and when naturally you are bathing, the cloth sticks to the bodily form. And when you see the form very clearly, this ascetic absolutely lost control and he jumped on that woman. This is given by Srivendra as an example of the sattvic equality failing. Okay? It fails. But the self, when you are in the self, you are completely detached from your body, mind, life, and therefore it cannot affect you. That's the difference. That's what he's pointing out. Okay? Note the word very interestingly. With the example I gave you, you can see, for though master of himself on the whole, by constant attention or an acquired habit of mind, in reality, he is not free from his lower nature, and it does actually assert itself in many ways, and may at any moment take a violent revenge for its rejection and suppression. It's almost like, if you suppress somebody, they will revolt. That's exactly what happens with your vital also. Okay? If you suppress the vital, it will revolt. That is the reason why sometimes you are asked to quietly look at things and separate yourself from the vital. In some yogas, you are asked not to try to control the vital. Okay? Try to separate yourself from the vital. In Srivendra also it is like that, because the vital, if you kill it, okay, if you suppress it, the energy also will go away. So don't do that. That doesn't also work, because sometimes it will come up. So the way actually is to distance yourself, observe your own vital and its weaknesses, and say, this is not me. This is the body-mind life. It is not me. So that's the way in Srivendra Yoga also. I go to the next sentence. For always the play of the lower nature is a triple play. The rajasic and tamasic qualities are ever lying in wait for the sattvic man. Okay? So this is using very interesting language. He says, ever lying in wait to pounce on him and get rid of his sattva. Okay? And that's the next, the image in the Gita. Even the mind of the wise man who labors for perfection is carried away by the vehement insistence of the senses. Yeah, so this is the chapter 2, verse 60. Yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipaschitah indriyani pramathini, they are very violent. Haranti prasavam mana. The mana is taken away, absolutely kidnapped and taken away by the senses. Indriyani pramathini. They are very violently, they control the mind rather than mind controlling the body. So, that's what it is. So, he is equal souled to all men. No, sorry, that's the previous one. We are in this one. So, perfect security can only be had by resorting to something higher than the sattvic quality. And what is that higher? The higher mind outside the body mind life. Something higher then the discerning mind. So the self, not the philosopher's intelligent self, but the divine sage's spiritual self, which is beyond the three worlds. So when you go, so now we have got four types of equality. The tamasic equality, where you flee away from the world. Then the rajasic equality, which is a stoicism. You confront the difficulties of the world and conquer them, your desires also. Then there's a sattvic, the one that controls is the mind, the sattvic equality. Finally, the spiritual equality, where you are completely dissociated, cut off from your body, mind, life, and the lower nature, and you are in a calm, quiet. The consciousness is there, calm and quiet, not affected at all. So, this is the two paragraphs that we read today. So, now we have four equalities, not only three. Okay. Then there is the next para. Oh, it's the last para. So, we have got 4 minutes, so we can read. One of you has to read. Who can read? Shilpa, you want to read?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And the
And the
philosophers and the
Go ahead.
philosophers' equality is like the Stoics, like the world fleeing aesthetics inwardly, a lonely freedom, remote and aloof from man. But the man born to the divine birth has found the divine not only in himself but in all beings. He has realized his unity with all, and his equality is therefore full of sympathy and oneness. He sees all as himself and is not intent on his lonely salvation. He even takes upon himself the burden of their happiness and sorrow, by which he is not himself affected or subjected. The perfect sage, the Gita, more than one repeats, is ever engaged with a large equality in doing good to all creatures and make that his occupation and delight. Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. The perfect yogin is no solitary musing on the self in his ivory tower of spiritual isolation, but Yukta Krishna Karma Krit, a many sided universal worker for the good of the world, for God in the world, for he is a bhakta, a lover and devotee of divine, as well as a sage and a yogin, a lover who loves God wherever he finds him and who finds him everywhere. And what he loves, he does not disdain to serve, nor does action carry him away from the bliss of union, since all his acts proceeds from the one in him and to the one in all they are directed. The equality of the Gita is a large synthetic equality in which all is lifted up into the integrality of the divine being and the divine nature.
So this is the last paragraph of the equality, and it is achieved when the consciousness in man rises and goes to the self, outside the body, mind, life. And when you do that in the life divine, Shiva says very clearly that when the consciousness reaches the self, two things are possible. Actually, he says three things. The first is that you see the physical world as unreal, and then you reject it. You see that you are not affected. Why to pay attention to something which is not even real? Okay? So you become absolutely calm and quiet. But this only calm and quietness. Okay? You reject the world. Whereas, if you are going to the self and depends on the individual, you can enter into a cosmic consciousness. When you enter into cosmic consciousness, everything is within you, and therefore the world cannot be unreal. You embrace the world, and you embrace all creatures also in them. So you get love and sympathy for everybody, which may not be there in the ascetic withdrawal. Okay? So this is the one that Gita is saying. You become one with everybody and you have an understanding, and therefore you try to help everybody. Okay? Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata. So you are trying to help everybody. And also the man who has reached himself is busy for the good of the world. So, so, in two, three places, the Gita says that. Okay? The man of wisdom is busy by maintaining things in the physical world and helping everybody. So that is the. So we'll do one thing. We have read it and we have got the basic idea. Next time we will go through. There are some interesting details there. That's why we'll see that and then go on to the next one. Equality and knowledge. Okay? They have to be linked. So that is the next chapter. Equality and knowledge. Are they related or are they not related? Okay, so that is going to be discussed. So we'll see that next time. It's already 8:40, so we have to stop here today. So, au revoir, everybody. Bye,
Au revoir,
Thank you,
Rangada.
Ranganath.
Bonne journée. Merci.
very delicious. Okay. Have a nice day, everybody.